You're listening to the Gender Reveal Party podcast. I'm your host, Jay Pryor. This isn't your usual gender reveal party. There will be no baby sex parts. This is the real reveal, where we reveal gender through stories of brave humans willing to share their lived experience. Enjoy the listening. I sure enjoy making it. Hello and welcome to the Gender Reveal Party. Today with me, I am very excited to share with you a very long-time friend of mine, Chris Hampton. Chris, welcome to the Gender Reveal Party.
Hi, Jay. It's so good to see you.
It's great to see you.
Very long time. Like what, 93?
That's what I was just about to ask you that if you remember the year we met. My guess would be Did you go to the big giant queer march in Washington in 93?
No, I think it was 94. I think I came out in 94 and I started going to like the campus group and that's where I met you.
Yeah. That's it. So 94. So that's very, very long time. Oftentimes I talk about the fact, and I think I talk about this a little bit in the show, and you've had a chance to see the show.
Yep.
What did you think of the show?
I loved the show.
Did you?
Yeah. And it was cool getting to hear, like, there have been times where we've not been in as close touch as other parts of our lives, and like, so it was cool to kind of flesh out more of kind of what you were going through, and kind of more details about different kind of points in your journey that were really cool to learn about.
Yeah.
And also like so much like reminiscing, that
right
came with it too. So
yeah. So if you've seen the show, I talk about the fact that in 95, I think it was, we went to the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force Conference, and I met a very awesome femme there, and she sent me the book Stonebridge Blues. Well, Chris was my roommate at that.
there were like 6 of us.
There were like 6 of, and I got to go. I was there, you guys' sponsor, if I remember correctly, because I'd already graduated. So somehow I got to be your sponsor. So that's how we got a van and did that, and it was a blast. I mean, that was a crazy time. Fred Phelps was there protesting, and yeah, that was way back in the day. So I'm sorry, what?
A party when Fred's there.
Oh, right. Always a party when Fred's there, for sure. So one of the things that, our tagline at the Gender Reveal Party is we reveal gender and not genitals. And the whole idea that gender is way more than the pink and blue boxes. And so what is your gender identity, Chris?
I'm, pretty white bread, cisgender, female.
Right on. Yeah, that's good. And just for our audience, because a lot of people are still figuring this out, we educate on it all the time, but cis means same. And so Chris is in alignment with your...
I'm what I was assigned at birth.
Right. And you're in alignment with that. So cis means same. That's great. And your gender expression is also, what would you say your gender expression is?
I had a button like back when we were at KU that said butchy femme, and I think that still fits. Like, I'm mostly femme, but I'm not like high femme,
Right.
So like, look, there's like pajama bottoms and flip flops at the bottom of this.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. So one of the things that is important to me for, like just to educate people and keep them tuned in is we've talked about the whole 2S LGBTQIA plus, alphabet, and you identify as the B, right?
Yes, bisexual, yes.
Okay, so back in the day, Chris, when we first met, being bisexual was like barely being added to the alphabet, right? Because everything was gay and lesbian. Like when back in the day when Chris and I were coming up, and when we first met, anything, any club, any group, anything was titled gay and lesbian. And the group, in fact, that we were in at college was called the Gay and Lesbian Services of Kansas. So the B was not included anywhere, right?
I started coming to meetings as soon as they changed the name to include.
Oh, wow.
I was like, oh, I guess I'm welcome. And that's when I started coming to meetings.
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's good. See it's so important to include people. And that's the thing that, I've heard, I hear comments sometimes about like, well, it's so much to say. It's like, that's right. Because we want to include everybody, right? Why not? Yeah. And so it's been all these years, and you and I started in college as activists, and pretty much we're the only ones left, right? I mean, we had a whole crew of people that were doing stuff back then. As far as I know, anyway, you and I are the only ones that kind of still have our foot in it on a pretty regular basis. Is that accurate in your world?
That I know of.
That I
Yeah.
know of too, yeah. So all these years, I would love for you to share what is it that you do and how you continue to do to support activism from the LGBTQIA lens.
Well, I'm a professional queer. Um,
Yes, you are.
I work at the American Civil Liberties Union. I'm a strategist in our LGBTQ project in our national legal department, which just means I'm not a lawyer. I'm lawyer adjacent. I like to say I provide lawyer to English translation services.
Nice.
But I have this weird mishmash of a job. So I run our youth and schools program, which is like getting out some, sometimes it's doing a know your rights presentation for some like GSA or something, or a big chunk of what I do is like anytime somebody writes to the ACLU national office with like, I'm not being allowed to take my boyfriend to prom, or they won't let me start a GSA, or I get beat up at school every day, whatever. I'm the person that connects with them and sees if there's anything we can do to help. But then this whole other part of my job is like kind of finding people with interesting stories or compelling stories, or who have legal standing to take on certain laws. So like all these shitty bills that are getting, can I cuss on this? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't care if you cuss.
Okay. Like all these shitty anti-trans bills that are coming out in state legislatures this last couple of years. Like the one that passed in Arkansas, my home state, to my great shame, which banned any sort of trans affirming medical treatment for youth. Like I had to find families who were directly impacted by that to be plaintiffs in the lawsuit.
Right.
So I used to find all the marriage plaintiffs for the marriage cases. But I don't have to do that anymore.
Way back in the day, isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Did you ever think when we were way back when we were, I tell people this all the time when we were younger, marriage was so far out of the realm of our reality or like our consciousness. We weren't even, I mean, it wasn't even on our radar. Like it wasn't even on our radar.
The sodomy laws.
Right.
Also, I lived in one of the last, like at the time, Kansas, one of the last 4 states that had a same-sex sodomy ban, which I think we both broke many times.
Yeah, depending on your definition of sodomy, yes. So
I think it's pretty wide.
So one of the things that is frustrating for me as an activist, and especially because it's not just when I'm being activist, it's when I'm just being myself, right? And I'm talking to my friends and I'm talking to anybody. If they're a cis het person, means cisgender people, heterosexual, you're getting with the program here pretty soon. A cis het person who has always been focused from a heteronormative lens, right? They tend to not believe me sometimes when I tell them some of the laws that get passed that we have to worry about, the way that they talk to our children, especially that. I mean, I just recently, I mean, it was literally less than a few weeks ago that in a conversation with someone, they were like, what? They said what to these kids? Because grown people who are legislators, right, that represent our government have said things to our children, our transgender children, like you should kill yourself, like you're, a waste of skin, like these horrible, horrible things. And I know that you have been witness to this because you're somebody who is with these kids, right, while they're dealing with these legislators. Can you speak to that and just speak to the whole vibe of like, what do these kids have to stand up to these people? They're standing up to grown people, right? These are grown legislators, legal conditions they're being put in, and what they're getting back is sometimes just horrific stuff, right? Am I wrong about that?
No. I mean, like the example that came right to the front of my mind was not too long ago in Texas, in the Texas state legislature, which is just constantly trying to get down on trans kids. That this woman, a mom of a trans girl, had to stop a state legislator from following her daughter into the bathroom to harass her, while they were there to lobby. Yeah, and like,
this is a child.
Yeah.
Or a young person, like maybe, how old is that kid?
I don't remember. But it was,
but still not out of high school.
Yeah. Or I help run a Facebook. I help with some Facebook stuff for one of our clients, and like the stuff that comes in to his inbox whenever there's news in his case is so vile and so hateful, and threats, and it's I don't even want to repeat any of it. But it's
I don't want you to.
There's a lot of like, you're a freak, and there's a lot of stuff about how you're this is a trans man, and so there's a lot of stuff about like you're a woman and you were born a woman and you're always going to be a woman. There's just that kind of stuff. But so much of it is like, it's not just clueless, it's hostile. It's
violent.
It is very violent.
Violence.
Yeah, there's a lot of I hope you die and stuff like that.
Right. And that's the thing, is like there's this level of violence that gender tends to activate, is the best word I can come up with. Something about gender norms, gender, like that. There's just something about gender in particular, because I think that, I'm not saying that, back in the day, and still I'm sure gay and lesbian and bisexual people experience this, but there's something about transgender people, non-binary people, there's something about the gender piece that really freaks people out. And part of that, I assert, is sexism, like the whole, transphobia and sexism, as far as I'm concerned, are hand in hand, right? And having white male privilege handed to me overnight, I got a huge dose of understanding around sexism, right? In general, I mean, how much we hate women, and then in particular, like how people need to stay in their lane in terms of gender, because people get so freaked out about it. What do you think? But beyond that, like, do you have any thoughts on that? Answers on that? What do you think we freak people out so bad?
I mean, I think our whole culture is so, not even our culture, like kind of, definitely our culture. Many cultures are so rigidly gendered, and it's something that is like ingrained in us from before birth, with things like gender reveal parties. Like it's the first question is always, is it a boy or a girl? That like transgressing that in any way, is such a threat to so many people. They just find it personally I think they find it so threatening, and they just their reaction is lashing out. I mean, I don't know a better or more. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I don't either. I just find it fascinating because I've been doing this work forever, and I've been out there on video a million times, and I just recently for non-binary people's International Non-Binary People's Day or something like that. There's a new day all the time. But I did a video. I had this shirt on. I did a video, and because I do identify as a genderqueer and always have. Boy, the trolls I got that time though were really angry. Like they were really violent, really coming after me with the violence, like, and wanting to beat me down. And it's just been so interesting to have that experience of how people. I mean, people are so uptight about gender, and I talk about this often. Like, I carry a purse, for example. I started carrying it, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, maybe, when I got sick of the fact that in the summertime, I have no pockets, right? In the wintertime, I got jackets, I got all these pockets, I can carry all my stuff. It's not a big deal. But in the summertime, I don't have pockets, and, it's annoying. So I started carrying a purse, and I call it a purse. And people are so freaked out about gender that I can't even call it a purse in a group of men without them being like, you mean your man bag? right? I'm like, now I mean my purse. Right? It's a word. You know what I mean? Right? You mean your merce? Your man purse? I'm like, no, I mean my purse. Right? Like it freaks them out to think, because they think of me as man, regardless of how much I come out and ask for they them pronouns, and have been out as a non-binary human forever. Like, no matter how many times I tell them, they still view me as man, and they really have trouble with man carrying a purse, right?
One of the things that I have noticed too, with trans people I know who are pretty binary in their identification, and who is that sometimes people want to hate on them, but they don't get it. They're like, you're a man and you should go to the men's restroom. And this trans man is like, yeah, I agree.
Right? Because they can't get there.
Like we sometimes get these people who are just like, well, that obviously, because they can't, I mean, they can't, like, they didn't clock them right away. So they're like,
right.
Thinking they're like yelling in the wrong direction.
Oh, that happens to me. Anytime I come out, I mean, and less now that non-binary is a thing, but especially back in the day, and when I was full on testosterone, if I came out to people as trans, often I would hear, "So you want to be a woman?" And I'd be like, "No, I already did that." And I'm no, right? Because all they can see is male. Right? Yeah. They can't see anything else. And so they must think, oh, if you want to transition, you must want to go toward female. It's like, no.
Or they think, oh, if you were trans, I could tell by looking at you.
Right. Exactly. Which is one of, oh, that's so frustrating. I mean, especially when it comes, it's just impossible when it comes to trans men. Like if a trans man has been on testosterone for 6 months and especially had top surgery, forget about it. You're not going to, there's no clocking them at all, ever. And people think that you can, and that's annoying because it's just not even true.
I mean, they're often short and charming, but that's about like as much as you can kind of guess at.
Right, exactly. Exactly. And I mean, it's also one of the worst insults that people, maybe we can have you speak to this because I think you get it, and maybe can share it with people out there where people don't understand that they're sort of insulting me when they tell me, oh, you look great. You really look good. Like you're, like you pass, like you're making it. You know what I mean? Like they think they're giving me a compliment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think like, there are some parallels that I see there with being a fat person where they're, like I sometimes get like, oh, but you've got a pretty face, or, like, things whereas they're trying to tell you, you're not like the rest of them. You're okay with me,
Yes. Yeah, you're not like the rest of them. That's true. You look okay, right?
Yeah.
You don't freak me out.
Or, making like really like nasty remarks about themselves. Oh, I'm so disgusting. I'm so fat. And I'm like, so it's disgusting to be like me? And they're like, oh, I don't think of you as fat. And I'm like, would you fucking look at me? Of course I'm fat.
Right. Like, yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And, I think even like having a conversation about being fat or fat positive, people don't even know how to have those conversations, right? I mean, that's not even, and I would assert, maybe it's not, but it feels like even, I mean, because I'm going off the rails here, but it feels like that conversation, for example, body positivity, fat positivity, in my world still only exists in the queer community. Is that accurate, or do you know?
No, I think there's, I mean, it's becoming a pretty, a more and more powerful movement, I think.
And that's true. I mean, especially with Lizzo, that's true now that I think about it, right? Who am I talking about? Like the Gen Zs, and that's something I have a lot of faith in. I hope you do, and you have more experience with them than I do. But I have a lot of faith in the Gen Zs. It seems like that generation is getting a lot of this right.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like so I'm in various like Facebook groups for different interests and stuff, and like one of the fat groups that I'm in, like was talking about how her her 13-year-old refused to be weighed at doctors and said that like the BMI is sus and like,
I love that.
and she was like, I didn't even tell her any of this, so.
That's hilarious. That's fantastic. See, I mean, I have a lot of faith in them. They seem to be getting a lot of this right.
Yeah.
I had this experience like recently because I was just wanted to get in better shape and started weighing myself. And same, like the weight for me is not a measure that makes me feel good about myself. Like it's not something I ever want to use. So I just threw the scale out completely. It's like we don't even own one at our house. Like we don't need to know that. It's not something that is a measure that makes any sense to judge myself by or to think about in that way. Yeah. So that's good stuff. So before we go, anything you'd like to share with our audience about your ACLU work or about being an ally to trans youth or being a bi-human on the planet, like anything at all?
I mean, well, I think right now, like we were talking earlier, trans kids are just under attack. I mean, all trans people are under attack, and non-binary people, but especially trans and non-binary kids are. And and fortunately, there are more and more parents who get it and who are supportive. And like the mama bears of trans kids are like the most ferocious mama bears you'll ever run across.
Love them, love them, love them. Yeah.
But not all kids have that at home.
Right.
But like even the ones that have support are just, like constantly dealing with stuff like, oh, my state legislature hates me. And so I don't know that there's a million ways to be an ally, but I just think being visible in fighting and speaking up and letting trans kids know that you are fighting for them. I think we're in a time where we're going to be having a lot of losses. And I think it's important that they see adults who are not giving up and who are still fighting for them, whether we win or lose.
Yeah.
I think it's just important to be very clear that we see you, we care about you, we will do everything we can for you. So like I try to be very clear about that with all the kids that I work with, and like it just as publicly as I can. And I think even if you're not doing much, just be visible about the fact that you care is doing something. You never know who's seeing it.
No, you never know. I mean, I just read a stat, and we just talked about this earlier, where you and I are neither that great on stats, but I did read the other day, the Trevor Project put out the stat about how, basically identifying a kid by their actual pronouns and name reduces suicidal ideation or reduces the chance that a kid will attempt suicide by 50%, like half. How hard is that? How hard is that to just call somebody by the right name and pronouns, especially when you have that kind of information? That's, for me, it's like once you have that kind of information, it's like, why wouldn't you, right? Why wouldn't you want to affirm that child if you knew that you could keep them, have them 50% less likely to attempt suicide?
Yeah. The people who are doing kind of all this anti-trans work in the world don't believe trans people are real. They think that if we suppress it enough, if we make it so hard to actually kind of live and be trans in the world, they'll give up. It's very much like people seem to think, used to think more often about gay people. I think they genuinely think if we just make it so hard for these kids to be trans, they'll disabuse themselves of this silly notion and we'll be rid of them.
Right. And what they don't really understand is, in my world as a coach, I teach all the time about what we resist persists, right? What we push against will always come against us stronger. And so what they don't understand is when they're pushing that hard, it's actually making kids come out more. I am somebody who's coached and been there for trans parents for years and years and years. Having my own trans kid now, by the way, is just bizarre. But I've been doing that for years. And I was blown away that right after Trump got elected, I used to get maybe, I don't know, a new parent introduced to me maybe once a month. And man, right after Trump got elected, it literally jumped to almost 2 a week. Like it was just unbelievable. All these kids just flew out of the closet. And it was so interesting to me, but it was such a representation for me of that world of what you resist persists. It's like you keep pushing at them, then that they're just going to be like, well, screw it, I'm out. Like I'm not doing that. So it's interesting that they don't understand that they're actually forcing the issue, they're having us come out stronger, which I love. Yeah, it's been an interesting to watch that progression for sure. So, well, my friend, I adore you and I appreciate you, and I thank you so much for coming on our show. I want to leave the audience, but just because I thought of it when you said this about how if they think if they can suppress it in us enough, right, that it will just smash and go away. And there's a quote by Anais Nin that I use a lot when I'm doing trans training, because the first time I heard it, I was like, well, that's a trans person's quote. But the quote says, and the day came when the risk to remain tight in the bud became more painful than the risk it took to blossom. And for me, that is so representative of every trans person, where you're just like, you're suppressing it and you're suppressing it and you're suppressing it. And at some point you realize that it's more painful to keep suppressing it than it is to actually, come out and blossom. And it's just reminded me of all the work that you do, where really you are the person who is making a pathway for our kids to be able to blossom. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. So
you're doing the same in so many ways, and I love you too, and just
love fest. So thanks for being on my show.
Happy to do it.
All right. Hey, thanks for listening to the Gender Reveal Party podcast. I hope you loved it. And if you did, would you take a second and go do all the things like subscribe, rate, review, tell all your friends? Apparently, if you do that, the podcast platforms are more likely to share it. And if you think these stories are important, please take 3 minutes to just go do that. I'd really appreciate it. Also, I'd love to connect with you on social. On Instagram and Facebook, I'm at the Gender Reveal Party. And on Twitter, I'm at Pryor J. It's a real joy and privilege to bring you this podcast. Come back soon. Love you, bye.